we are going to make hummus and falafels. Alright, well, I'm gonna give it a taste test. That is olive oil. It is spicy. Very spicy. Hey y'all, so in this episode we're gonna cook up some falafels, hummus, and pita bread. So follow along and I'll share the recipes in the description below and let me know if you try it out. To get started, we're going to get our bowl. You can Yes, you can hand knead it, but we are using a mixer bowl with the hook. Okay, y'all, so you're gonna put in 1.5 cup of warm water because you'll have to activate the yeast. We got our sugar and the yeast. And then 1 tablespoon of the olive oil. Then we just gotta let that sit. Let it get foamy on top. I prioritize good food. I don't want to eat fake, synthetic, junk food that shouldn't even be classified as food. But here we are, more things are being pushed out into the world that is not food. So I'm willing to eat simple, bland, and boring at times. So I'm eating something real and nutrients. I don't need Anyways, yeah, so we prioritize real good food for our bodies. It makes us feel good. So I think after a while, when you cut out that crap, that fake food, that filler food, you genuinely start to notice when you are eating better, and when you eat something that might not be so great, you instantly feel your body reject it. So at first it might be a little challenging to switch to more healthy options, but I promise you, you will feel better, and in the long run you will be more motivated and you'll be more disciplined and you'll just naturally crave good food. Put it in the comments below if you get it, if you also prioritize real food. But I'm talking about local farmed food from the farmers, like getting vegetables from your local farmer. There's a few CSA boxes in our region that like we are grateful for, but like you just have to check your area, what's out there, what's available to you, and go get it, my friend. Anyways, let's get into our pita, falafel, and hummus. All right, so you see how that's frothy? So yeah, that means you can add in the flour now. Obviously, I would prefer to mill it myself, but we're not there yet. We're not there yet, but we will reach there. Work towards it. My friend. Alright y'all, so we have our dough. We finished it off with some more olive oil and some kneading, some manual kneading, because I think that's always needed. It's always needed. We always need human touch, not just machines can't do it. But now we're gonna let this sit for 2 hours. So I'm gonna get started on roasting the garlic and cooking down the beets so we can get our hummus going. We are going to make a beetroot hummus with real beetroot. Y'all, some things it's okay to tell your child not to play with. We now have a semi-half working food processor, and I was on the hunt for this for a while and I found it for $15. And it was working so good. So hopefully it still has some life left in it, and maybe I can just replace this piece in the top clasp have broke off. I normally don't mind my son playing with the pots and pans and, you know, stuff like this. The blade was not in it and it was not plugged in, just to let you know. Moving on to onions. I'm going to roast these onions. So we had to take a break and go to the store. Just down the road, we have a store that sells like all of your kind of basic needs. So we had garlic from the garden, but it actually had went bad. So we did have to go buy some garlic. And although we don't like using store-bought garlic, this is something that I really wanted in the recipe. So we did compromise. So once we got our onion and garlic chopped up, we roasted them in the oven, and I washed the veggies with baking powder. I like to do this when I get the vegetables from the grocery store because, you know, you just don't know how it's been handled, and I feel better about doing it that way. I also peeled the skin off of the potatoes. I think everyone has a different way they like to roast potatoes, and if they were coming out of my garden, I would probably leave the skin on them. With your potatoes, set them aside to soak, and we're going to move on to our dough, which has greatly expanded. Big. With the dough, you can work it on your counter. I cleaned my counter space, and then the dough is actually very easy to, you know, it's not very dense, it's very light. I cut it into a half, and then I cut those halves into 6 equal parts. With your equal pieces of dough, you're going to hand roll them into a nice ball shape and then set them aside for 20 minutes. And then let's move on to our hummus. Using the onion and garlic that you roasted in the oven, you're going to take that and puree it down or blend it. You want it to be more like a puree because unless you personally want chunks of it in your hummus. Personally, we don't want that. And then, so I did use some olive oil to give it some more, you know, oil liquid to get that blended. And then we added the chickpeas and our beets roots, blending it until you get the consistency you want. Now we're going to move on to our falafels, and I like to add in seasoning to this, like thyme, scallion, dill. Put some flour into it. So at the time of making these, if I were to have like ground flaxseed, I would have actually tried to use that instead of the flour. Boiling, and I'm trying to like be inspired by Nona's potatoes. So the potatoes aren't fully soft, but you don't want them to be too soft. So I'm gonna dump the water off and then get them in the oven. So something that I would do differently next time with our pita balls is I would have floured or dusted the pans with flour so they didn't stick so much. And then you're also going to roll these out into a nice circle. I dusted the counter with some flour and my rolling pin. And once you roll them out, I would set them aside for another 20 minutes to let them rise some more. However, I did not do that this time, and they still turned out perfectly fine. But the pocket, if you're looking for that pocket, I would suggest to set them aside for another 20 minutes to get that result. So we have everything roasted. I have the potatoes in the oven, and I did cover them with tin foil halfway through the cooking cycle. And I don't have a baking tray, so hush. I just used parchment paper on the wire rack, and you know what? It did the job for us this time.
And now we're moving on to our falafels. So I do suggest if you are frying them, you can bake them, but however, we did fry them in this video, and I would suggest using a bit of oil, like enough to cover them or submerge them. You don't want just a little bit, because then they're not really fully cooking and it will take longer. So I used coconut oil and ghee together, and I found that it provided a very nice base to fry them in. Okay, so once those finish up fry, we're good to go. We have our full spread. We have our potatoes, our pita bread, our falafels, and then we have our hummus and carrot, and I also cooked some egg for us.
Yep. Making things homemade, fresh, from scratch. Yeah. It is a journey.